Are cheap builds for expensive ammo even worth your money? Let's find out.
.300 Blackout is a very expensive round. Comes in at over $1 a piece just for subs. So it makes you want to save some money and go budget on the rifle, but is that a good idea? See, why are we building a .300 Blackout in the first place? Most of us are building it so we have a short, quiet, powerful bag gun, right? So you're going to want a suppressor on it in order to actually take advantage of the .300 Blackout round, a suppressor, subs, and a folder to all fit in that nice bag gun package. But can you do that on a budget?
Right, and that leads us to purchasing the lowest end, or what we would call the cheapest that we would go in a PSA upper, all the way up to a Sig cane brate. We're gonna shoot some drills and kind of dive into where the perfect balance is of spending money on a rifle so that you still have some money to spend on the very expensive ammo. So let's touch on what these guns are, and then we'll get into the drills that we're gonna run. All right, this 7-inch PSA upper was $250. When we put it onto a lower with a bolt and a charging handle, it came out to $650 for a complete functioning rifle minus accessories. Now, we had to make some changes, one of which was adding a handguard, which we got for free. We had to chop it in half with a Dremel. It's not pretty, but it works, and that is step one of getting an optimized platform, throwing a suppressor on. Now, you'll notice there's no folder on here, but we'll get to that a little bit later. 7-inch barrel on that fella, and that's the medium barrel length that we have today. This is an 8.5-inch barrel from Zev. Drew was rocking the Zev Core Elite at $1,800. This is the middle price point, and I'm already a big fan of this one, but we'll see how it actually runs as we go. You'll notice it does have a suppressor and a folder on it. And then finally we have Nick's Gucci build. The Sig cane brake comes in at $2,600 with a 5.5-inch barrel, the shortest that we have out here today. And although it's super expensive and super Gucci, does it actually outperform with the financial investment? Well, let's start running some drills. We'll zero and get a chronograph and prove what these bullets are actually doing coming out of these different barrel lengths. Day one, we got zeroing and chronoing, which is just checking the muzzle velocity of the round coming out of your barrel. So when we did all of that, we found one number across the board that was no surprise to anyone. The shorter the barrel, the slower the muzzle velocity. So Nick's 5.5-inch barrel was shooting an average of 861 feet per second. Then my 7-inch barrel was shooting an average of 890 feet per second. And Drew, with the longest, an 8.5-inch barrel, nice Drew, was a 972 feet per second. Now here's an interesting piece of information that I wasn't necessarily expecting. The higher quality build, the lower standard deviation. So Nick's Sig had a standard deviation of 9.6, which means the range in numbers was reduced. That's really good, it's very consistent. Mine, the PSA, was shooting with a standard deviation of 35. That's very high, that's not a good number to see. And then Drew's, with the middle price point, had a standard deviation of 25. So really what we're getting at is, yep, the shorter the barrel you go, the slower the muzzle velocity. But the higher quality build is gonna give us a better consistency across the board. Hold on though. We had an unscripted part of the story here that was a crazy deviation from what we were originally gonna shoot for you guys. So first of all, why are we filming this in a day 1, day 2, day 3 format? Because day 1 was nothing but nightmares for me. While Nick and Drew were running around having a grand old time shooting ammo that the company purchased, I was doing nothing but tap rack, take the gun apart, change my buffer spring, put it back in, shoot it, tap rack, change the buffer, change all of those parts. Try putting a law folder on. It works for 3 rounds. Now it doesn't. Let's film. Try it again. It doesn't work. It was so frustrating. Also keep in mind that I have been doing this, as in building guns and getting different variations of firearms to function in a safe and flawless manner for about 5 years. But this system was nothing but nightmares. Now this is not a video crapping on PSA, but you have to understand what's going on when you incorporate inexpensive components into something like .300 Blackout, not just 5.56. Day 2 was a lot of work for me. Let's talk about it. Oh man, this gun's starting to give me a little bit of issues. More on that later, but first, to thank our sponsors. You guys, you probably know what's coming, but the Sonoran Desert Institute is gonna be able to give you guys solutions on being able to fix your guns at home. All you gotta do is go take one of their classes, and you too shall be able to understand how the system works, or many other guns if you're curious about it. And having that core understanding helps you be able to fix and repair parts when a gun or a tool is not working as designed. Additionally, magazines are often a problem when you are not getting your gun to cycle properly. Semi-automatic firearms, the biggest weakness is hands down the magazine. And Gun Mag Warehouse is the place just for that. For all of your firearm needs, you're gonna need some magazines to keep them running and functioning. It is an item that breaks down over time, so go check out Gun Mag Warehouse. For both SDI and Gun Mag, we have a link in the description. Check them out, keep full stock, keep your head full of knowledge.
Hold up a minute, hold up. I know we're talking about 300 Blackouts and all these like cool attachments and stuff, but to be honest, if you look at the way that the world's going, you gotta know no one's looking out for you other than yourself. There's no higher government power that really gives a rip about you. When times get hard, you're gonna need to be able to feed your family. So one of our favorite solutions for that is My Patriot Supply. I've been a longtime customer of theirs. In fact, I just ordered a huge batch of MREs because they have the cheapest, freshest MRE supply that I could find online. But they also have 3-month food supply. So if you go to preparewithdc.com right now, you can save $200 on a 3-month food supply. This is about 1.5 years worth of food for one individual. And if you were to take the cost of that and compare it to like a full, even the cheapest 300 Blackout, full ideal build, along with some ammo to go with it, it's about the same cost. So before you jump into something like this, because a 300 Blackout probably isn't your first choice, I would take care of the food situation in your own home. Preparewithdc.com, hit it up.
Day 2's objective was nothing but get this rifle to actually function. Now, we have to start with how it actually shipped and showed up to us. It arrived with an inexpensive M-LOK handguard from Magpul, and it was captured with a Delta ring and then the muzzle device. This is kind of PSA's own little unique design. But in order to get a suppressor on there, which once again is optimal for 300 Blackout, we had to take the muzzle device off. And then to get this handguard on here, the barrel nut had to come off. So it all got rebuilt on the front end. In doing so, I discovered that the gas block, which has a hole at the bottom of the barrel, it's a small dimple designed to actually get your screw to set and center that gas block. It is not centered. So every time I was reinstalling this gas block, it wanted to shift itself over, and the hole that was receiving pressure into the gas block was not properly aligning with the barrel. So this is currently offset in accordance with the manufacturer. Now, all that being said, it does run unsuppressed with supers just fine, which takes us back to the learning understanding that we found only through trial and error, that this gun is really, from the factory, not designed to take a suppressor or run subsonics. Now, again, it can be done, but the original manufacturing of that upper, well, it wasn't stated on the website, and that's a shame, but it wasn't supposed to shoot subs. Now, what did we do in order to get this thing actually up and running? Install the most garbage parts that we could find. Every time that I was putting in something like a Geisley Super 42 spring, quality Springco springs, or even mil-spec standard buffer springs, the gun was still undergassed even after I got that gas block installed properly. Now we have a spring that has about 7,000 to 8,000 rounds of 5.56 suppressed through it. Very, very weak action spring back here. It's super soft, and a very cheap buffer system that is a little bit lighter than a standard carbine spring. So the point is, we are using the cheapest parts that we can find, and that finally results in the fact that I cannot use, let me find it here, I can't use a folder because folders need to have an extension pushed into the bolt carrier group, which adds weight to the bolt carrier group, and there's still not even enough gas being able to push this thing back to get it to cycle. So that's why I was having so many issues day 1. Day 2 was also full of issues. Now this thing actually cycles. It locks back on an empty mag about 50% of the time, but it is picking up a new round. At the end of the day, you're not gonna have issues like this if you go buy a quality BCM or Aero Precision or any of those other parts. I need to stress, I don't mean to just poo-poo on PSA. I have built their inexpensive uppers into 300 Blackouts for other companies that have shot very well for a long time. We just so happened to pick one that was designed to shoot supersonic, and this one didn't like it at all. But thank God it's up and running. Finally, I can play with the other guys. Let's not end it that way. I can shoot with the other guys, and day 3.
So honestly, the past 2 days have sucked. I mean, having a gun that doesn't work is pretty brutal and not fun, and just everyone was sad. So now we got up and running. We're gonna start with some drills that have no training value whatsoever, but are really fun and goofy, and we're just gonna set the mood, you know, have a good time, and then get into the serious stuff.
Nick, we're in Malevolent Creek and the Terminids are closing in. We gotta go! Move, move, move! For democracy! Get that gun up! Let's go!
Honestly, if we had some support from the Xbox community, it probably would have gone a lot better.
Zev 300 Blackout, Ultima ZT1 54-inch. Let's cut some clean lines, baby! Go.
Yeah, I definitely need to, I've got a slow leak back here, so I'm pulling to the left, and the throttle's a little messed up. Belt probably needs to be replaced, but otherwise not bad.
I know Drew likes to be the cool dad and keep those dad vibes, but I prefer 2 wheels and motorcycles. That'll show them. Check that out.
We should have got that to run a drill.
Next time.
Next time.
Yeah. Build drills with all 3 guns and the same shooter for the sake of consistency, starting with the PSA. Can I get a beep? Man, the fact that it's a heavier round and I don't have a solid buffer system, it feels super like lumbering and slow. I'll run that a little bit faster this time, but it's hard to keep that dot on target because it's just like, one more time, Drew.
1.6.
1.6?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next. Whew.
1.44.
It's quite a bit smoother. The height of the optic does change the felt recoil.
1.54.
What was it?
1.54.
Nice. Okay.
Your can was actually the quietest. That coming in a very close second, if not on par, and mine was certainly the loudest.
Okay.
With the Griffin can.
Well, there's a lot of factors that come into play in regards to how that sound is actually perceived at your location. It'll be different, a little bit different for me, and even more different for people downrange, but I like the sharp snappiness of the SIG. Obviously you're paying for it, but you're not, it doesn't feel like you have, again, that long lumbering recoil of it. I mean, they all shoot, But if I had to pick one for just felt recoil and tracking the dot, this MCX absolutely takes the cake.
Took a while. Changed the pull handle right before we did this. That was a mistake. Definitely slowed me down getting out of the bag.
Oh, that little guy's hard to hit. Oh,
2583.
man, oh man. Well, I will say that that bag absolutely says, hello, I have a rifle with me. And the fact that I can't run this with a folder it's forcing me to run that bag. $19.50. Man, super fast Nick over here. Dude, I'll say that bag, that's my new thing today. I'll say that bag is the least conspicuous.
Yeah, it is. I actually like these. I'm getting more used to these pull tabs.
Oh,
They're actually nice.
Yeah, knowing exactly where to grab and
Yep.
So distance, given that we have 3 different builds with 3 different barrel lengths and 3 different muzzle velocities and discrepancies in the error rate of those muzzle velocities, we want to see how these do at 100, 200, and 300 meters. Let's go.
So Nick, on your 5-inch MCX, where were you holding at 100 yards?
Right here.
Top of B zone-ish neckline. And you dropped, could have brought a tape measure out here, but close to 10 inches. Statistically, we should be seeing it drop about 9 inches. So that shorter barrel, lower muzzle velocity, it's dropping, man, down into almost the pelvic region. You have a few rounds in A zone, but even still, you're dropping way down into that like iliac crest range. So a ton of drop for a 50-yard zero at 100. Let's go to 2.
Well, I had about, or held about right at the neck, chin area, like right, a little bit higher, with it being 200.
Paper's clean.
She clean.
Who knows if any wind picked up or what, because a lot of these are left. I guess it could be my zero shifting as well, but the elevation is far more consistent with this pattern. In fact, there's almost a perfect line other than that guy. So that's very interesting with the barrel length, giving me a little bit more consistency. I was as well holding right at the chin. Some of Nick's rounds were a little bit higher, and who knows, that might be because he has a little bit more consistent chamber pressures. We're not hardly even touching on all of the science, but I'm curious about the 200 yards. Well, nerds, yeah, that was not a round turning like it should. That thing was tumbling. I kind of had the same result as Nick. There's one little splash right there. Keep in mind, I was holding all the way up here. So your rounds are dropping enough that you have to be off the target when you're actually pulling the trigger. That's wild. Dude, that's freaking awesome.
So yeah, I was holding chin-ish, right around here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All in.
All in, and this would be very doable prone. Like granted, we had it in a vise, but like 100 yards, you can make hits like this prone.
1, 2, 3, 4, And then 5.
Five, okay, cool. Where was it you guys were holding?
Well, I had told you to hold higher, so you would have been
yeah, I was about
here.
Yep.
Because I held here and then I tried a few here, but my, 7-inch barrel still didn't make that possible. I was tumbling, but you holding it about the same spot, we're actually getting impacts.
Yep. Again, doable and a good braced thing.
Right.
My first hit, I was aiming about right here. And then my second and third shot, it was just user error, and it hit slightly behind right here, and then slightly beside over here somewhere. So honestly though, not bad.
All right guys, as you know, 300 Blackout is not designed for distance, but it is nice to know what your rounds are actually doing as they carry on, because who knows, maybe you're gonna have to throw supers in and shoot a little bit further, and that will absolutely give you a little bit more reach. That being said, 300 Blackout has its superpower ability when it is super quiet, super compact, and very lightweight. Now there's a lot of tools that you can use out there, like a alphateric tack-on that would turn all of our zeros from a 50-meter zero into a 100-meter zero, just because this has an intentional 9 MOA shift. And yep, you could put other optics like LPVOs or magnifiers on there, but the base of the gun, how the gun actually sits. Drew, if all of these were made at the exact same price point, how the guns shot themselves, which one would be your preferred?
Once we got the PSA set up really well, to be honest, I like the way that felt, even more than my Zev.
Interesting.
I think it was mainly because of the folder that we added onto this, because I just recently added the folder, but it sounds crazy. I like the way it felt.
Yeah, there is a little bit more of a weight inside of the bulk carrier group when you actually add weight. I would rather have the MCX because I like that felt recoil impulse, and it is more compact. Yes, it has a shorter barrel, but if I am getting a 300 Blackout, I'm really not at all concerned about shooting out to distance. It's nice to know what supers are doing, but I even still would spend more time and money on those subs to get good at shooting those out to 200 yards and beyond that. Really wouldn't even worry about it.
I like the way that felt when I shot it the most, but in terms of performance, I'd still stick with the Zev. It had 0 malfunctions out here the entire, every day that we shot. Yours had a couple with mags. Yours had a boatload.
A ton, yeah.
This has never, still to this day, has never failed. Not a single issue ever.
Well,
and the fact that it's, 8.5-inch barrel at distance makes it a whole lot easier, less holdover. Yeah.
Okay, so let's actually answer the question. Is buying an inexpensive upper or components inside of the firearm worth it to save money on something like a 300 Blackout?
I'm gonna have to go with hard no. To be honest, I don't even know why cheap 300 Blackout uppers exist. The fact that PSA makes a $200 Blackout upper that can't shoot well suppressed or can't use a law folder or any variation of those two, it's just, and maybe it can, maybe someone has cracked the code on it, but requires some sort of genius to figure it out. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And why would I run a gun that couldn't be in its most optimized state possible? Just makes no sense to me. And also, when you're talking about a caliber that requires a large ammo investment to be proficient with, and whatever people say, oh, there's no difference between shooting 300 Blackout and shooting 5.56, there absolutely is a difference. The guns shoot different. I've shot tons of both. They shoot different. The better you go, the less you notice that difference, but it is there. So I just don't get why someone would spend a little bit of money on something that the whole reason why they're spending a little bit of money is because they can't afford something nicer. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you can't afford something nicer, you also can't afford the ammo to properly train on your budget build in the first place. So there's so many conundrums and hypocrisies in the idea of a bare bones budget 300 Blackout. At least go up to like an Arrow or a BCM. Those are good entry level 300 Blackouts that I would recommend, but going with a $200 PSA upper, no, hard pass. And the fact that PSA doesn't have, if I could give them any advice, not that they'll listen to us, but as customers of theirs, we've never got anything from them for free. We have no relationship with them whatsoever, so we don't have a dog in this fight. We can speak honestly about this. The fact that it is not on the website There's nowhere mentioned on the product page, and I looked through it, that this will not run well suppressed or at all. This will not run well if you put a law folder on it. It just kind of blows my mind.
And I'll also say that our findings in that it won't run unsuppressed and it won't run with a law folder is our findings. Did we get a lemon? I don't know. PSA may have done something or shot with a different suppressor or shot with different ammo and gotten different results. But it goes without saying, if you go buy something like a BCM, you can be confident that it is going to run subs and supers out of the box, and you can easily get a different buffer system to get it to run with a law folder. I'll close by saying this. I do like PSA. They make weapons and tools, life-saving tools for the masses, and for that, we love them. But I would rather have a PSA 5.56 and a BCM or Zev or Sig 300 Blackout than the inverse.
Yep.
If you're gonna be spending a high dollar value on the ammo, get a gun to accommodate it. 5.56 is not cheap either, but PSA, and from what I've seen, has made a ton of 5.56 rifles that just simply work. You have supersonic rounds that have a lot more back pressure than 300 Blackout, and they do work.
If you're working on an extremely limited budget and for whatever reason you just love 300 Blackout and you wish you had your own, what I would recommend is don't buy a budget 300 Blackout. Buy a budget 10.5 in 5.56. If you're buying budget, you probably don't have a suppressor, you probably don't have a $300 law folder, you probably don't have all these fancy things to like really kit it out. So don't waste your money on all that stuff. Just get a short 5.56 and you've got a short bag gun that performs really well, just as, and I cringe at these words, but just as good as a budget 300 Blackout would, if not probably way better.
Sure. With that, guys, thank you for watching. If you made it to this, the end of the video, we do have Patreon and they have access to content like this and others. We also check those DMs when people send questions through Patreon. And we also have some merch on the website, like hats and hoodies. We're kind of getting out of the hoodie season, but they are nice to stay a little bit comfortable when it's a bit colder. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Okay.
Joke? Give it a little